from Tifl Philosophy Club. Today you will listen to a discussion of our school's philosophy club on the question of is it possible not to belong anywhere? When we first reached this question, I thought of what other people think about it on social media. Let's see what data this social media tool that we use effectively today gave us. Nothing, really nothing. It is very difficult to find any hashtags or posts on this subject. According to the answers given on several websites, we can define it as follows: I talk, I eat, I do what I always do, but with a sense of emptiness, as if there was a deep nothingness within us.
I would like to start this discussion by suggesting that the sense of belongingness is one of the basic needs of human beings. The feeling of belonging, which is one of the things we need the most after physiological and safety needs, is experienced by the individual during adolescence, when the desire to be included in a community or a group is very intense. And if this adolescent doesn't feel any attachment to any person, community, culture, or even an object, he or she probably won't have the chance to improve himself or self-actualize himself, which is on top of the pyramid of my hierarchy of needs. And my great friend Carl Rogers, who is also an important psychotherapist, agrees on this with me. He states that in order to self-actualize, people need to experience some sort of unconditional love. By love, he means feeling valued and being comfortable in his own skin, which can only be met if the supposed person is somehow attached to another.
Let's not forget that this is a matter that can be analyzed by an individualist aspect. Because to simply self-acknowledge, we need to accept every part of our personalities. And by that, we develop ourselves, using the help that comes from no one but us, our own selves. So if you read between the lines, people can live and even improve themselves without belonging to a commune. But some might say that this is the main cause of alienation. By that I mean, what I'm suggesting might cause the lack of connection between society and the individual. If we redefine belongingness as a state of attachment to something that arises as a result of the necessity to create some sort of a safe place, we will see that there is a need for something in order to belong somewhere. This something may be the morals, the language, the culture.
Even though both of these theories seem reasonable, people that are excluded or refused from real-life society usually feel some sort of anger, grief, or depression, and instead of improving themselves, they usually stop caring about it, which causes, again, alienation. And this duo isn't as magical as my friend Locke suggests. This combination has two terrible consequences. 1. Their fear of not being accepted or alienated declines as they are always able to find someone that will share similar opinions as you on the internet. Seems incredible, but this caused some people to lock themselves up in their houses, which resulted in being detached from the actual reality. But they were still belonging to a community. 2. Their fear of being alienated by people increases due to harsh comments that they could get on the internet. Hiding behind nicknames gave people a lot more confidence in saying whatever they wanted to say, which created a great pressure on others. This also caused people to become asocial and distance themselves from everything.
I think we are all missing an important point here. We are this far in the discussion, but no one offered a proper definition of belonging. I would like to define belonging as a state of attachment to something that arises as a result of the necessity to create some kind of safe space. We see that something is needed to belong somewhere. This is where existential philosophers like myself begin to question. For me, the culture we are born in or the country we are living in cannot be an insurmountable obstacle which makes me question. Can we actually be dependent or even belong to something if there's nothing that can properly influence our mind? In order to actually depend on something, we got to have no other choice, but according to my observations, there is always a second option that could possibly lead to a self-realization. But people often ignore it in order to not be excluded. All my life, I have come to realize that people don't live as groups in order not to give up some of their luxuries, which is not having to question things. How strange. Here we can confirm my theory, negative ecstasy. This theory predicts that people constantly experience what they call negative ecstasy, a state of extreme sadness or discomfort. To elaborate further, the term is used to describe the emotional state we are in when we realize that we can actually quit our job in a situation where we have to work because we need money, or when we realize that we can actually voice our opinions that we must repress, so as not to be excluded from the rest of society. We actually feel this term when we are much more free than we think. However, these feelings are often overcome by fear. This idea shows us that we don't need to belong anywhere to realize ourselves, and that perhaps belonging to a group can be detrimental to our personal growth because we suppress our own reality with the false sense of comfort that comes from belonging.
For me, this world is a sort of a trial place that has been organized for people to understand and make sense of its own existence. But before I elaborate more on my ideas, I would like to take a look at our history. At the beginning of human life, people were physically weaker than wild animals, and to protect themselves, they decided to unite and be together to stand up against animals. In this case, they realized that living with groups was a lot easier. This is how cultures, religions, and of course morals came into being. With groups, cities became safer, and with that, people focused more on their individual needs. We know that, from that day to today, the feeling and belonging of being a part of a group has never lost its value. But now that their needs were met, just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs predicted, people started to focus more on their own existence, and that's where the problem with our belongingness began. People did start to question things, as this was their reason to be on this earth, but there was a great obstacle for them: the communities that they formed. The thing that saved them during primitive times became an obstacle that didn't let them advance.
I think that people could self-actualize a lot more easily if they didn't have a great commitment to society or even a group. Mainly because the desire to belong to a large community, which arises from people's most primitive instincts, prevents individuals from adopting or even coming across other ideas. I also don't understand the desire to follow our primitive instincts. We wouldn't even have a system if we continued on with them. But whatever, back to our main topic. So the more individualized people get, more independent they become. And this freedom generates an appropriate environment to self-actualize. So people shouldn't belong anywhere. Liberalism frees the individual to do what's best for him. John Locke, who is one of the most popular and prominent philosophers, proved my point 300 years ago. I would like to remind you of his words. Everyone is his own judge.
Well, there's no freedom in being your own judge if you are not yourself anymore. In modern society, like all other societies, people aren't defined by their own idea of themselves, but rather their consciousness is shaped by their actions in society. You know, Tyler Durden was speaking facts when he said people are working jobs they hate to buy things they mostly don't even need. Homo faber, the human being as a creator, can only be as human as the work they put into their minds and make with their hands. To work in jobs you hate, to buy things you don't need, is the opposite of being yourself. Because when you hate your job, you hate what is supposed to be your life. Then buying all the unnecessary things with the money you make, your life efforts seem unnecessary too. So you are constantly being alienated from society, and with that, from yourself. You hate your job, you can't be yourself while working. but you also can't be yourself without creating, thinking, or simply working. You can't belong anywhere if you are not you, if what makes you is not your own will, but a will imposed over you by modern society. You can't be you at work, neither can you be you at home. Where can you truly belong to if you don't even belong to yourself?
In this discussion, we'll listen to the ideas of many philosophers such as Maslow's self-actualize, Roger's effect of being at peace with himself on attachment, Jung's self-discovery and acceptance can reveal a sense of belonging, etc. Of course, everyone will have an answer for this question and will continue to question. Even if we reach the answer, do you think the philosophical questioning will ever end? Can philosophy ever end? In a sense, philosophy does not have an endpoint or a final conclusion because it is an ongoing process of questioning, exploring, and refining our understanding of the world, ourselves, and our place in it. Philosophy is not a subject that can be neatly resolved or wrapped up with a definitive answer because it is constantly evolving and adapting to new information, insights, and perspectives. Philosophical inquiry often leads to more question, which in turn lead to more inquiry, and so on. So, while philosophy as a discipline may not have a final end point, it has undoubtedly had and will continue to have a lasting impact on human thought and culture.